Tonight, Decision Day. The Supreme Court allowing President Trump to move forward with his changes to birthright citizenship. The president calling it a giant win. The High Court also ruling on health care and parents' rights. Their decisions clearing the way for the president to move forward with his sweeping agenda. We'll take you through each ruling. The so-called big beautiful bill and what's behind the holdup in the Senate as the race heats up to get it passed before the president's July 4th deadline. Closing arguments in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs, the defense making its final case to the jury after nearly 2 months of testimony. Deliberations expected to start Monday. Our Aaron Koturski is outside the courthouse. The multi-million-dollar wedding of the century taking place today in Venice. Super yachts, private jets, and an exclusive guest list. We'll break down the numbers of this jaw-dropping event. I gotta love and I know that it's all I know. And Natasha Bedingfield, singer, songwriter, and record producer. She's here bringing her pocket full of sunshine to talk about her new tour.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Ramos in for Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We begin with a major ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court, strengthening the president's authority in its decision involving birthright citizenship. The justices found in a 6-3 decision along ideological lines that federal judges cannot put nationwide blocks on a president's executive orders. Justice Amy Coney Barrett writing for the majority that federal courts do not exercise general oversight of the executive branch. Justice Sonia Sotomayor writing for the justices in dissent that the president's bid to end birthright citizenship makes a solemn mockery of our Constitution. President Trump called it a big win, making a rare appearance in the White House briefing room, saying he'll now move forward with his plans to limit birthright citizenship. The Supreme Court ruling may also allow the president to charge ahead on other parts of his agenda. And there were some other key decisions today. ABC's senior Washington reporter David Muir leads us off from the Supreme Court.
Tonight, the Supreme Court's conservative majority dramatically limiting the ability of federal judges to check presidential power. The 6-3 decision allows President Trump to move forward with plans to end birthright citizenship, which has been law of the land for more than 100 years.
This morning, the Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law.
Federal judges in 3 states had ruled Trump's order on birthright citizenship blatantly violates the Constitution and Supreme Court precedent, issuing nationwide injunctions blocking the order from taking effect. But today, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, writing for the majority, said those sweeping injunctions went too far and that federal courts do not exercise general oversight of the executive branch. They resolve cases and controversies.
I want to thank Justice Barrett, who wrote the opinion brilliantly, as well as Chief Justice Roberts, and Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Great people.
In a biting dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor said the liberal justices would not join so grave an attack on our system of law, saying Trump's bid to end birthright citizenship makes a solemn mockery of our Constitution. The court's decision took no position on whether Trump's executive order is constitutional, though the ruling does let him put it into effect in 30 days. But at the White House today, no explanation of how that would work. Attorney General Pam Bondi deflecting when pressed on how exactly citizenship for newborns across America would be determined.
Who would be tasked with actually vetting citizenship? And how, would this be a situation where you have nurses and doctors checking for citizenship of parents, or?
This is all pending litigation. It's going to be decided in October by the Supreme Court, and we'll discuss that after the litigation.
But there is currently no litigation before the Supreme Court in October involving birthright citizenship. Still, opponents of Trump's order are vowing to get the issue back before the justices as soon as possible.
And David Muir joins us now from the Supreme Court. Devin, how far-reaching do we expect the birthright citizenship decision to be, and what were some of the court's other major rulings today?
Yeah, Stephanie, the stakes here were quite high, extending far beyond the citizenship debate. Dozens of federal judges have issued nationwide injunctions against some of President Trump's controversial policies, from the mass layoffs of federal workers to funding freezes for foreign aid. Some of those may now need to be rolled back or lifted entirely because of what the court decided today. That remains to be seen. The other decisions that were handed down today also quite significant. The Supreme Court did uphold those popular Obamacare no-cost preventive health care services that had been challenged. The justices also said that parents have a right to remove their kids from classrooms in public schools when LGBTQ-themed storybooks are presented in violation of their religious beliefs. And the court, Stephanie, also tonight, in a big win for parents, said that states can require online age verification for adult websites, an effort to protect children from seeing pornography. Stephanie?
All right, Devin Dwyer for us there in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, Devin.
You bet.
Joining me now to talk more about these Supreme Court decisions is constitutional law professor and ABC News legal contributor James Sample. James, thank you so much for joining us here in studio. President Trump's executive order attempted to eliminate birthright citizenship, and it was challenged in court, as you saw today. What did you make of that decision?
Well, the decision doesn't weigh in on the merits of whether or not birthright citizenship is or is not the law of the land. So for now, it is still the status quo. It is still the law of the land. It is an extraordinarily aggressive effort on the part of the president and the administration. If you think about it, the birthright citizenship is enshrined in the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment dates to 1868. The precedent upholding birthright citizenship as the meaning of the 14th Amendment being that anyone born in the United States is entitled to birthright citizenship is uninterrupted and dates to 1898. That's 127 years of uninterrupted Supreme Court precedent. So to change that, we have an amendment process in this country, but it's very, very difficult. To do so via executive order is extraordinarily aggressive. For many, many years, the idea of eliminating birthright citizenship was considered at the extreme fringe. If you give Donald Trump nothing else, give him this. He has now positioned what was once extreme and out there on the fringe in the mainstream of our political discourse.
And James, I'm glad you brought up the 14th Amendment. If the administration wants to, we know that they want to eliminate birthright citizenship. Wouldn't that require another amendment to the Constitution in order to make that happen?
That's the civics that we certainly learned in elementary school, without a doubt. That is Sesame Street constitutional law, and that has long been the assumption. The idea that you could change the 14th Amendment or the meaning of the 14th Amendment via executive order is really, really far out there in terms of the idea of just how aggressive this is. But the Supreme Court has been very, very good to Donald Trump over a number of years. And a year ago, almost to the day, a year ago, the Supreme Court issued its sweeping immunity ruling, which at the time we thought, most constitutional scholars thought, was really, really unlikely, which is to say, things that used to be considered unlikely are now very possible.
When might justices decide on the constitutionality of this executive order? Any idea?
I think Pam Bondi was being unduly optimistic when she said October. As Devin's report says, there's nothing to indicate that the court will take up this issue in October. And in fact, it would be somewhat inappropriate to do so. It's going to work its way from the lower courts, which are still empowered to rule on the constitutionality of laws. Today's ruling on the elimination of nationwide injunctions doesn't strip the courts of their jurisdiction to consider constitutionality, but once they rule on the merits of those cases, the cases will work their way up to the appellate process and then eventually the Supreme Court. It wouldn't shock me that this gets fast-tracked, that we're talking about sometime next year, but for now, especially for the next 30 days, the status quo remains.
And the administration is clearly interpreting the Constitution in a different way. We will see what happens. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us, James. Appreciate it. And staying in Washington, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill could be hitting a roadblock. The bill includes a package of tax cuts, military and border security spending. It also has some cuts to Medicaid. Senate Republicans are now forced to rewrite key sections after they were tossed out by the Senate's nonpartisan rule keeper. They were hoping to pass the bill by July 4th, but now it could slide past the holiday. For more now, I'm joined by Oklahoma Republican Senator James Lankford. Thank you so much, Senator, for your time tonight. So President Trump today relented a little in his push to get Senate Republicans to pass the so-called big, beautiful budget bill by July 4th, saying it's important, but not calling it the end all, right? So what is the biggest sticking point right now in negotiations, and when might we see a vote?
Yeah, we're hoping to get a vote as quickly as we can get everything all together on it. Obviously, it's 1,000 pages. Most of it has been out there in public for now days to weeks, actually, as we've released each chapter day by day over the last 2 weeks. But we've got several different issues that are all coming together at the end, as we always do on a bill this large. Every part of this bill has to be what's called scored by the Congressional Budget Office to see the budget effect, and then it has to go to the parliamentarian and go through a review. If the parliamentarian says, no, I disagree with one section of this, it has to go back through that process again.
Certainly many steps involved. I want to talk about Medicare for a bit while we have you. Roughly 1 in 4 Oklahomans rely on Medicare. The bill would cut some funding to Medicaid. We know that. Last time we had you on Prime, you pointed to the fact that the cuts come in the form of work requirements for able-bodied adults with no children. Oklahoma has the second highest population by percent of Native Americans in the U.S., and the unemployment rate is higher among that population. Are you seeking any carve-outs? So if there are any places that just it won't work for you, those folks that are there any carve-outs for you? What are your sticking points?
Yeah, the key areas that we're looking to make sure that we're protecting are things like disabled children, those folks that are pregnant moms. I mean, those folks that they cannot provide a work environment. But if you're an able-bodied individual with no dependents, we want to be able to encourage work for those individuals. That's helpful for them. It's helpful for their families. That's also helpful for the entire nation. It's better if a person transitions off Medicaid and moves to employer-provided health care than it does by their next-door neighbor providing their health care through their taxes. That's a much better formula for everybody in the process.
So if folks aren't able to get work, and those folks can still get access to Medicaid, right?
Yes, they would be. So in high unemployment time periods, there's already statements that we have in this where if there's a very high time of unemployment, people are not able to get to work on that. They couldn't do that. But this is the way we've set this up is 20 hours a week, but it would be work 20 hours a week or volunteer 20 hours a week or get job training 20 hours a week. It's a pretty low threshold. It's basically an incentive to be able to say you've got to get up and to actually be engaged in your community. If you're an able-bodied individual with no dependents, we need you up and inside society and inside of our economy.
Finally, getting your reaction to the Supreme Court birthright decision today. The court did not weigh in on the merits of the case. I understand you are in favor of the court's decision to limit nationwide injunctions. I'm curious, though, with regards to birthright citizenship itself, do you think the status quo should continue where a baby born in the U.S. to a non-U.S. citizen is given citizenship?
So let me back up and take both those. Yes, I'm very clear on the nationwide injunctions, and I've been consistent, both Republicans and Democrats, when they've been in the White House. We should not have nationwide injunctions. That's a job of the Supreme Court, not of lower courts on it. Lower courts should not make a decision for the whole nation. The Supreme Court should make decisions for the whole nation. And so glad that they have reset that. Now, what it was for, quite frankly, the first 200 years of our country, that's the way it was. When you get into birthright citizenship, I'm one of those folks that would say, we do have to look at this as a nation and say if someone illegally crosses into our country and then has a child, should that person have the full rights of everyone else in the country? And I would say no.
So I just want to follow up on that. How would this work? So someone who is not here legally gives birth and that baby now is not a citizen of any country. What country would that baby be tied to?
Would be connected to their parents the same way it is for every diplomat that comes into our country. When a baby is born of a diplomat in our country, they're a citizen of the country that the parents are from, and not that they're where they are presently at this point. That already happens all the time right now.
We will see what the Supreme Court decides. Thank you so much, Senator. Appreciate your time.
You bet. Glad to visit.
Now to the dangerous weather threat and powerful storms. Tonight, severe storms are battering much of the heartland for a second straight day. More than 750 flights delayed at Chicago airports, with dozens more canceled. That system prompted a traffic nightmare overnight on the West Virginia Turnpike. South of Charleston, part of the road closed due to high water. Local officials say they got 5 inches of rain in just 45 minutes. And here in the Northeast, after the extreme heat wave we felt earlier this week, the temperatures are rising again. I want to get right to Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg with our New York station WABC. And Lee, you're tracking some dangerous storms hitting right now.
Yeah, and it's hard to believe being here in the Northeast where we've had this May rewind the last couple of days and been struggling through the 60s. But that hot air is coming eastward, and as we make that transition, we're seeing some of those storms. So tonight, we start in areas like Pittsburgh, the severe thunderstorm warning south of Pittsburgh, and flood issues all the way down to Roanoke. There's a new tornado watch out for North Dakota, severe thunderstorm watch for parts of Nebraska. So that hot high is starting to push eastward. We still have big-time warmth over parts of the Tennessee Valley where it feels like triple digits all the way up into the Ohio Valley. And again, that moves eastward. So once it gets to the Northeast tomorrow, severe thunderstorms a possibility from D.C. to New York to Albany, and then a secondary area with even higher risk in the upper Midwest from Sioux Falls into Minneapolis, maybe some damaging winds, large hail, and an isolated tornado. As we look to the big holiday weekend, 4th of July, it's heating up again across the northern Rockies. No major heat waves, but it gets warmer again in the east, cooler in the southwest because of the monsoon. Stephanie?
Incredible. Thank you so much, Lee. Tonight, a woman is recovering from a suspected shark bite at a popular East Coast beach, and apparently she was standing in waist-high water when it happened. ABC's Faith Abube has this story.
Tonight, officials say a sand tiger shark most likely bit a woman in New York's popular Jones Beach on Long Island. The 20-year-old was waist deep in the water at the Central Mall beachfront after 4 p.m. on Wednesday, when authorities say she sustained minor lacerations to her left foot and leg.
Nope, that's a shark.
This baby shark spotted at Jones Beach that same morning, but not the one believed to have bitten the woman. It's the first suspected shark bite in the New York City area since 2023, when a swimmer was seriously injured at Rockaway Beach. Sand tiger sharks can grow up to 10 feet long and 350 pounds. The sharks, known to frequent the waters around Long Island in the summer, but are not aggressive towards humans unless they're threatened.
Something hard bit me and tried to take me away.
Just 2 weeks ago, a shark nearly biting off 9-year-old Leah Lendo's hand as she snorkeled off Florida's Gulf Coast. X-rays showing the damage. Doctors using blood vessels from her leg to restore blood flow to her hand.
Faith Abube for us tonight. Thank you. And we've got breaking news tonight. A 9th inmate who escaped from a New Orleans jail has now been caught. Let's get right to Eva Pilgrim. Eva, what more are you learning?
Stephanie, that breaking news just coming in. Authorities saying they have captured Antoine Massey after 6 weeks on the run. This is the moment that Massey and 9 other inmates escaped on May 16th, seen running out of the New Orleans jail. Their disappearance was not noticed for several hours. Now, 33-year-old Massey was found today at a home in New Orleans. He was in jail for domestic abuse battery involving strangulation, as well as theft of a motor vehicle. Videos had surfaced on social media earlier this month appearing to be Massey. That led to a failed raid. But Stephanie, there is still one more inmate, a convicted murderer who is still on the run, but a big break in this case tonight. Stephanie?
A very big break, on the run for a month and a half, caught tonight. Thank you so much, Eva. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced today that a Navy ship named in honor of Navy veteran and LGBTQ rights activist Harvey Milk will be renamed for Oscar V. Peterson. Milk was discharged from service after being threatened with a court-martial because of his sexual orientation. He went on to become the first openly gay man elected to public office in the U.S. Oscar V. Peterson was injured during battle in 1942, but was still able to close the bulkhead stop valves aboard the USS Neo Show. He did die from his injuries. Hegseth defended the renaming, saying, quote, "We are taking the politics out of ship naming." Closing arguments today in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs, the defense making its final case to the jury after nearly 2 months of testimony. Deliberations expected to start on Monday. Our Aaron Kotursky is outside the courthouse.
For more than 4 hours, the defense tried to persuade the jury the trial of Sean Combs has nothing to do with sex trafficking, racketeering, or prostitution, but is a great modern love story, arguing star witness Cassie Ventura was no trafficking victim, but a woman who actually likes sex and willingly took part in sexual marathons with male escorts. This was her lifestyle choice, too, the defense said. She's not clutching her pearls. The defense mocked the government's case, referencing the searches of Combs's Miami and Los Angeles homes that turned up baby oil, lubricant, drugs, high heels, and guns. They found the baby oil. They found the Astroglide, the defense said in a sarcastic tone. The only crime scene is your private sex life. The defense argued Combs was no racketeering kingpin, casting doubt on the alleged crimes of arson, drug possession, and bribery. This is his personal life. It's not about an enterprise. The defense asking jurors to summon the courage to acquit Sean Combs. He sits there innocent. Return him to his family. But prosecutors pushed back, telling jurors in their rebuttal not to let Combs blame victims and the government for his lies, his threats, and his violence.
Aaron Katersky, thank you. Let's get right to ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villalona. Bernarda, what stood out to you the most today?
What a day. I have to say, it was literally, the defense said it's a tale of two trials. But from looking at the prosecution's closing yesterday and then the defense closing today, it's definitely the tale of two narratives in terms of his style was completely different. And like Aaron said, he made a complete mockery of the prosecution's case, the prosecution's closing, and all of the evidence that actually existed. For a while, I felt like I was a part of a comedy show of how many jokes were being made during this closing argument. But I have to give it to the defense in the sense that the defense was able to humanize Sean Combs, at least at the very beginning, in terms of pointing out that to the jury that the family is sitting right here, pointing out everything that he's done for the community, how he's built up his businesses. And this is the same businesses and the same entrepreneur that the prosecution is seeking to say that he's a racketeering conspirator. But also what stood out to me is that at one point, he admitted and told this jury that Sean Combs is in jail. You rarely ever see that as a defense attorney. You do not want to let the jury know that your client is in jail, and he actually did that. But he poked holes in terms of all the predicate acts, and he also argued that there is, of course, no enterprise. And in terms of the sexual acts with Cassie as well as with Jane, that it was all consensual and that these women actually liked it. I'm concerned about that for the defense because I think since he joked around so much, he may have been able to turn off some of those jurors, because in the end, you can't run from that Intercontinental Hotel video, and you do know that Cassie was beaten several times throughout that relationship.
Right, and speaking of that video, I mean, it's an infamous video. We all saw it. You see Sean Combs dragging Cassie Ventura there through the hallway in that space, in that elevator bank. While federal prosecutors argue the video was a linchpin moment, how did the defense talk about that video? They had a different spin on it, didn't they?
Absolutely. So the defense said that this video and what had actually transpired was not that there was a freak-off that was taking place, not that there was an escort that was inside of the room, but that instead that Cassie was upset and she stormed the room, and she stormed the room with Sean Combs' cell phone, so that Sean Combs went after her, not for a freak-off or to continue a freak-off, but rather to get his cell phone back from Cassie. In addition to that, Sean Combs also said that when you see like the vase being thrown, that he wasn't throwing the vase, instead that he was throwing the contents of the vase. So in terms of the defense, they really minimized that video, and it's contrary to what they said in the opening, because in the opening they said they're not going to minimize any of the domestic violence. They weren't going to minimize the acts from that Intercontinental Hotel, but that's exactly what they did during closing arguments, is minimize every step of what we saw on video.
And at this point, the prosecution got a rebuttal, didn't
they did.
Were they successful in countering the defense?
Absolutely. When Maureen Comey got up to do that rebuttal, she came out swinging. You saw so much passion in her and so much anger and so much disgust at the closing argument that the defense made, pretty much saying that the defense was pretty much putting excuses after excuses after excuses for acts that are actually criminal, and that it is a joke and a slap in the face for anyone to think that someone being urinated in her mouth, a person that's being forced to engage in these sexual acts while having a UTI or without having any sleep, or actually going for multiple hours and standing in the same position for so long, is something that someone wants. So she came out swinging, also reiterating why it's not consensual, why it's sex trafficking, and also she did attack in the terms of saying that the defense tried to say that the transportation to engage in prostitution, because the defense said that Sean Combs wasn't paying for sexual acts, but rather for a person's company, that flies in the face of, come on. Like, come on now. Come on now. That's pretty much what Maureen Cormier. The thing is that she was so upset, and you can feel her anger at what was said during the defense's closing. And I think she may have been successful in bringing that jury back to reality in a sense of, look, this is something that is real. This is something that's emotional. These are things that were crimes that no one ever held Sean Combs accountable to because he was the king of his kingdom and that people just wanted to please him. But ultimately, we'll find out beginning on Monday. Deliberation starts, so we'll see what side that this jury is going to select.
This has been all so much, I'm sure, for the jury and for those individuals listening to this day in and day out. What are you looking forward to hearing on Monday when the deliberations take place?
So a verdict. That's what I'm looking for. I really hope that this jury doesn't end up in a mistrial, or and when I say a mistrial, meaning that they can't reach a decision as to any or all of the counts that he is charged with, because you're thinking this trial went on for 7 weeks, 34 witnesses that testified. It's emotional and timing for everyone that's involved, including the victims that actually had to testify and everyone that was a part of this criminal prosecution. So I'm hoping to see that they reach a verdict. I highly doubt that it's going to be on Monday, just because this jury heard so much evidence. And also there's a lot of evidence to go through and determining the credibility of the witnesses that actually testify. Because I think when it comes to the sex trafficking, people still have to grasp, like, are you a victim when you actually consented on certain occasions, but not on other occasions, but your text messages says, I love you and I can't wait for another freak off or another hotel night. So I think that's going to be a problem for this jury to be able to understand and comprehend. But I'll be looking forward to the notes that they send out, because jurors, they can request information or clarification by sending a note to the judge requesting either a transcript or evidence for them to see the evidence, or a read back of the charges itself, or to receive some clarification as to the charges and how they should read these charges and comprehend these charges.
They have a lot to think about over the weekend.
Yes.
Bernarda, thank you so much. You've been on this from the start for us. We really appreciate it. Thanks for your time. One of the stars of a classic TV show has died. Actor Rick Hurst rose to stardom playing Sheriff Cletus Hogg on The Dukes of Hazzard. He started acting at the age of 5 and once said in a radio interview that he did 146 national commercials in 2 years. Hurst was 79 years old. Coming up, the teen now under arrest in that plot to attack a Taylor Swift concert last August. And 90 private jets, yes, 90. The stars are out for Jeff Bezos' Venice wedding. Who were the celebrities on those jets and how much were they shelling out to be there? Our inside look at the wedding. That's coming up. If there's one thing you can't buy on Amazon yet, it's a multi-million-dollar wedding in Venice. But for the executive chairman and founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, and his bride, Lauren Sanchez, that's no problem. They have officially married, and they are continuing to celebrate their nuptials this weekend along the gilded canals of the centuries-old city. Their wedding is tonight's by the numbers. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first, our Maggie Rulli reports from Venice.
So this is one of the reasons why it is so logistically difficult to plan a wedding like this in Venice. This is how everyone gets around, whether you're in a taxi like I am, getting to work, police, construction. Everyone gets around on these boats. And now just imagine doing this with billionaires, movie stars, and tech moguls.
Thanks, Maggie. So how many billionaires, movie stars, and tech moguls are we talking about? Not too many, actually. Only about 200 guests will be in attendance. Among them, Oprah Winfrey, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Brady, and the Kardashian family. Those guests flying in on about 90 private jets, among other modes of transportation. Many of them staying in suites along Venice's Grand Canal, costing upwards of $10,000 per night. Chump change for some of those guests, and chump change for Bezos and Sanchez. The wedding itself is estimated to be costing them $55 million, and that's just a fraction of Bezos' wealth. He's now number 4 on the Forbes list of the world's wealthiest people. His net worth, an estimated $237 billion. Bezos and Sanchez are reported to have a prenuptial agreement. Bezos divorced his first wife, Mackenzie Scott, in 2019, transferring to her a quarter of his Amazon stake. Scott has since donated $19 $17 billion of that to more than 2,000 organizations. Coming up, a fireball streaked across the southern sky yesterday at 30,000 miles per hour. NASA today revealed what it was. And a $40 million yacht that sunk last year was just dredged up from the depths of the Mediterranean. Could it hold secrets that explain how 7 of its occupants drowned? That's coming up next. Welcome back. We go inside the mysterious sinking of a British billionaire's rare super yacht. The $40 million luxury vessel went under last year, and its wreckage was lifted just this past week. Our Juju Chang has the latest.
The mysterious sinking of a rare super yacht owned by a billionaire tech mogul dubbed the British Bill Gates shocked the world.
This morning, desperate efforts to find 6 missing people after a luxury yacht sank 160 feet down to the sea floor.
How a boat like Bayesian could have gone down so quickly. It just doesn't happen. This doesn't happen.
Now, nearly a year later, the wreckage from the Bayesian finally lifted from the depths of the Mediterranean. The questions of what happened linger on.
This is literally, it's a crime scene. People died there.
The new UK Marine Accident Report also revealing the final and frantic minutes on board the luxury yacht, like how one survivor used a smartphone light in the darkness and how some clung to cushions to stay afloat.
That whole incident caught the world's attention. It's got to be your worst nightmare as a crew and as a passenger.
The Bayesian, a 184-foot sailing yacht worth $40 million. The ship dubbed unsinkable by some, setting sail off the coast of Sicily last August, before the unthinkable happened.
It's haunting. It's terrifying. Make no mistake about it. We want to know what happened.
The epic tragedy raising questions about how those once on top of the world could end up at the bottom of the sea in 16 minutes.
There is a sort of Titanic quality about it, the thrill of human achievement, and then the devastation when it goes wrong.
It's given birth to countless conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it has.
Many wondering if there's more to the story. But Lynch's former lawyer believes it was more likely the result of a freak accident.
I've heard many that Mike was close to the intelligence communities in England and the United States, and he was warehousing secret information. Crazy stuff. I don't know how you make a tornado at sea because you want to get Mike Lynch.
What we're seeing now is a melding of technology and the creative industries.
Mike Lynch made a fortune in the tech industry.
Mike, by intelligent people, was the grandfather of AI and completely changed the world with his brilliance.
He named this boat after this mathematical approach to the world, this idea of Bayesian probability.
For the last few years, he'd faced the real possibility of dying in prison, accused of inflating the cost of his company by billions. But his against-all-odds legal victory came just weeks before a fateful voyage that changed everything.
This was a trip to celebrate this second life, as he had called it.
I think he needed a holiday. They were going on the boat.
It was a beautiful sunny day when Lynch and his wife Angela, along with their 18-year-old daughter Hannah, 9 guests, and a crew of 10 boarded the Bayesian. The trip, a celebration for Hannah, too. The young poet and literature lover was due to attend Oxford in the fall.
She was happy to be the best at something, but wanting other people to be the best in their own way and, like, bringing them up. She knew how to unabashedly have fun, too, for sure.
Also on the Bayesian, a group of business moguls, high-powered attorneys and their families, including a 1-year-old baby. Chris Morvillo, Lynch's friend and a member of his legal team, had nudged his wife Netta, a jewelry designer, to go on the trip. Greg Morvillo is one of Chris Morvillo's brothers. Impact by Nightline spoke with him last year.
Chris and Netta met in law school. When we would get together, they would be sitting together. His arm would be around her. They would be holding hands.
Pictures online displaying the interior of the British-flagged vessel, the 6 luxurious suites, the crew waiting on every need. Its single aluminum mast was one of the tallest in the world, standing around 240 feet, like 25 stories in the air. The Bayesian arrived in the small fishing village of Porticello on August 18th. It was a Sunday, and a storm was brewing. Those on board that dazzling vessel were going to sleep for the night. The storm barreling through in the early morning of August 19th. A nearby restaurant captured the scene. Intense winds whipping through, creating chaos. Tracking data shows at 3:50 in the morning, the superyacht was struggling, the winds sending the ship zigzagging out of control. Now, a new report sheds light on those final moments. The UK's Marine Accident Investigation Branch releasing an interim report in May, separate from the ongoing Italian criminal investigation.
It actually sounds like it was quite terrifying.
Nick Sloan is an engineer and salvage master who helped lift the Italian cruise ship Costa Concordia, which sunk in 2012, killing 32 people.
The interim report reflects what they've investigated so far. They've got statements from the crew, from the captain, the chief engineer, chief officer, the stewards, and the survivors.
At 3:55 a.m., a deckhand closed hatches and windows to protect from the rain. Around 4 a.m., with the Bayesian dragging its anchor, a deckhand woke the skipper, also known as the captain.
The captain's up in the wheelhouse in the flying bridge. The chief engineer's got the generators going, the hydraulics for the steering motors and the controllable pitch propellers. The crew have been summoned.
By 4:06, the wind suddenly picked up to more than 80 miles an hour. The boat violently heeled over 90 degrees in less than 15 seconds. The superyacht began to take on water.
Yeah, that's when things went really wrong very quickly. So some of the passengers climbed up the drawers in the closets to get up. The chief officer was actually flushed down into the lower saloon and was in an air pocket.
The captain telling those present to abandon ship as the vessel was sinking. In the water, chaos. Among those who scrambled out alive, 9 crew members and 6 passengers. According to the report, survivors made sure the baby had a cushion as a flotation device, while some were treading water and others held on to some cushions. One guest was using the torch from their phone to search the water for other survivors. Karsten Bonner was captaining a nearby sailing yacht, the Sir Robert Baden-Powell.
We noticed weather coming, and when it appeared, we started our engine to keep the ship in position, and we had the other yacht behind us. And a moment later, she was gone.
This image from CCTV showing the mast's lights disappearing in the storm. Within 16 minutes of being struck by what investigators believe were sudden hurricane-force winds, the Bayesian was gone. 7 lives lost, including Mike and Hannah Lynch, as well as Chris and Netta Morvillo.
I held it together on the phone and then got off the phone, probably burst into tears.
The report also raising questions about how much wind the superyacht could sustain, noting these vulnerabilities were also unknown to either the owner or the crew of Bayesian. Investigators hope the wreckage, raised 165 feet from the seabed, will offer more clues as to what unfolded.
I'll go through it very, very carefully from the bow all the way to the stern and actually tick off all these boxes of what could have caused it.
The recovery of the Bayesian challenging and at times dangerous. On May 9th, a 39-year-old Dutch specialist diver died while cutting part of the boom, fused to the mast. Today, the once gleaming superyacht, now covered in muck and algae, resting in a Sicilian port, its famed mast still underwater. Greg Morvillo telling ABC that his family hopes for no more losses associated with the vessel and that they anxiously await the ultimate conclusion of the investigation.
I think about the last few moments for them on the ship all the time. It's haunting. It's terrifying.
Our thanks to Juju Chang for that incredible story. Coming up, why California Governor Gavin Newsom is suing a prominent news network. And then we sit down with the pocket full of sunshine singer who is now writing the Unwritten. Natasha Bedingfield sharing with us what's next in her musical journey. A meteor caused a fireball across the southern sky, and NASA today revealed how large it was and how fast it was traveling. A Florida woman lives to tell of the moment her home was lifted off the ground during a tornado, and Microsoft's blue screen of death, you know it, right? It will soon be gone. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. NASA confirmed that the bright daytime fireball seen across parts of the southeast Thursday was indeed a meteor. The object was a fragment of an asteroid, roughly 3 feet in diameter and weighing more than a ton. It was moving at 30,000 miles per hour before disintegrating 27 miles above West Forest, Georgia, releasing the same amount of energy as about 20 tons of TNT. The pressure wave traveled to the ground, causing loud booms heard by people in the area. California Governor Gavin Newsom sued Fox News today over alleged defamation, saying the network knowingly aired false information about a phone call he had with President Trump around the time the National Guard was sent to Los Angeles. The suit alleges Fox News anchor Jesse Waters edited out key information from a clip of Trump talking about calling Newsom, then used the edited video to assert that Newsom had lied about the call. Newsom is asking for $787 million in punitive damages, the same amount Fox agreed to pay in 2023 to settle a defamation lawsuit by Dominion Voting Systems. Fox News released a statement calling Newsom's lawsuit frivolous, adding they look forward to it being dismissed. James Ryan, the president of the University of Virginia, has informed the board that oversees the school that he will resign from his position. Sources tell ABC News the move comes amid pressure from the Trump administration to step aside in order to resolve a condition of a Justice Department investigation that concluded the use of race in admissions and other student benefits were widespread practices throughout every component and facet of the institution. In a statement, Ryan said it was an excruciatingly difficult decision and he's heartbroken to be leaving this way. German prosecutors announced charges today against a Syrian national accused of supporting a foiled plot last year to attack Taylor Swift concerts in neighboring Austria. 3 Swift concerts in Vienna were canceled in early August of 2024 when the plot was discovered. Austrian authorities say the primary suspect in custody and the new suspect, identified only as Mohammed, allegedly helped him by translating bomb-building instructions from Arabic and facilitating contact with an Islamic State member abroad. A Florida woman survived an EF1 tornado that lifted her house off its foundation while she was inside.
It was really kindled to a Wizard of Oz experience.
The dramatic event was caught by a neighbor's Ring camera and shows the home lifting off the ground for about 15 seconds by 110-mile-per-hour winds before slamming back down to the ground.
I ended up back here in the bedroom. I had been in what was a family room and stepped out, which was good because it's no longer there at all. So I'd stayed in that room. I don't know what would have happened to me.
Microsoft's blue screen of death error message is going away, but don't worry, there's a replacement. The company says it's part of a larger revamp following last year's CrowdStrike outage and will be replaced by a new message in the event of computer trouble, this time on a black background. The blue error message has been around in some form or another for 40 years, since the first Windows release in 1985. Now to tonight's Prime Playlist Shuffle, where we sit down with artists who are transforming the music industry. Our next guest is proving that iconic songwriting never goes out of style. Natasha Bedingfield first broke through with Unwritten, a global anthem that became the soundtrack for a generation, partnered with her debut album by the same name that delivered 4 consecutive hit singles and made Natasha the first British female artist to hit #1 in the U.S. since 1987. 2 decades later, with more than 20 million albums sold, multiple platinum certifications, Grammy and Brit nominations, and hits like Pocket Full of Sunshine and Love Like This under her belt, Natasha is back on the road playing major festivals, releasing remixes, and selling out shows. Take a listen to the song that really started it all.
Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you. Only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips.
Oh, my millennial heart. I love that song so much. Natasha Bedingfield is here with us in studio. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Unwritten. Oh, it's having such a moment right now, from rom-coms like Anyone But You to viral TikToks, bringing you an entirely new generation of fans. And the song, it started charting on the Billboard Global 200 and earned more than 1 billion Spotify streams. So what has it been like watching this song just take on new life? And I mean, you've got so many more fans now that are just being introduced to Unwritten.
Yeah, it's just truly amazing. It's spectacular that the song has had this longevity, that it has this staying power. And for me, that's not lost on me, how special that is. And also, it just feels like it resonates, like it means something for different things for different people as well, which I love.
You are one with the stage, and you can see the folks in the crowd. They're feeling, they're singing along right there with you. You've played
so cool.
Coachella with the LA Philharmonic, and even selling out a last-minute show. So how has performing evolved for you over the years?
I mean, I think somebody told me this, that you can become better and better the more that you do it. It's one of those things that you can keep growing. And I think the more I've performed, I love those pictures.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I feel like my voice has got better. I've trained it, and my band is incredible. So I've always had a great band, and right now they're just in the pocket. So it's a real journey.
Yeah.
Oh, I love those photos.
Yeah, these are great.
Yeah, that was just recently. This was a show when Bonnaroo was cancelled. We did a show in Nashville. We just announced the next day, instead of Bonnaroo, let's just do this show in this amazing venue in Nashville, and it sold out right away.
Yeah,
and
that was at last night's show.
Yes, and I was wearing Christian Siriano there. He made me this amazing outfit. I'm like, I've got this great outfit to wear. Cinderella has no place for her dress. What can we do for my band and everything? So we had this really incredible show.
You've said that you're not nostalgic and that you're focused on what's next. So how do you stay creatively fresh while still honoring the music that fans love?
I try to be present. Some of my mentors, I just had amazing music mentors, and it's really about the song. It's really about making amazing songs. And the songs are stars in their own way. I kind of see them as like little people, and they can change. They can have remixes. They can keep growing, and I just keep writing more songs. And I know I try to stay present. I don't really put up my plaques that much. I don't focus on the stats or the numbers, and that helps me stay creative. I keep writing new material.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. You have to come to my show.
Oh, girlfriend,
so
you ain't got to tell me twice.
Cool.
Natasha is on tour now, so make sure to get your tickets. That is our show for this hour. I'm Stephanie Ramos. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thank you so much for streaming with us.